Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Scary, paranormal things from your childhood.
I have a few from my grandmother's old house. House was built in 1990, so it's not that old. Definitely wasn't a breeding ground for bad mojo like a lot of ancient houses are. 16. Visiting my grandmother and shitbag husband, mom's stepfather. It's a long story as to why he is called shitbag. Grandmother has a huge master bedroom with a big gorgeous mirror. Putting on makeup in said mirror. 19 Feminine now. I looked down to put away the brush I was holding to pick up mascara. As soon as I look back up, there's a fucking face in the mirror. I literally have no way of describing it, other than it was pure fucking evil. Completely frozen, pretty much don't know whether to shit or go blind. Still looking at it through the mirror, too afraid to turn around. This fucking thing's talks. Sounds like fucking Abaddon from Dota 2, only really high-pitched. Not sure what it says, but upon a morbidly curious inspection later on, I thought it sigh. Facilis descensus Averni. This apparently means the descent into hell is easy. Finally snap back into action. Thank fucking God. No. Avi. Still in my underwear and sleeping shit. Don't give a fuck. Get in my car and take the 3-hour drive back to my house, 2 hours away. This was literally the last straw for me, considering so much other creepy shit happened in that house. Ever since then, I have refused to step foot in it again, and since my grandmother passed away in 2011, I haven't had to. For this one, you have to know how you access the attic. In the pic, you see the stairs. At the top on the right are 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom. On the left is a room by itself. This room was always the creepiest, most uncomfortable room to be in. When I was 10, I had a very vivid night terror of what I believed, and still believe, to be hell. There is a bathroom connected to this room, and in the bathroom, is the attic door. 14. Again, visiting grandmother. Grandmother has a beautiful box that is literally older than I am, and has been broken for longer than I had been alive at the time. Broken as in, the little drum will not spin. My grandmother planned on getting it fixed someday, but it was quickly forgotten about and stuffed into the attic. Sitting downstairs in the dining room, watching a Pink Floyd concert while my mom is cooking dinner. Mother is a very spiritual woman, mind you, and very in touch with her Choctaw and Cherokee heritage. She looks it too. I hear rhythmic tinkling music, like what would play in a snow globe or toy carousel thing. Don't think much of it, but it's weird. Doesn't stop. Tinkling music finally ends its little tune, so I'm like whatever. Start up again, same tune. Won't fucking stop. Keep cycling. Mom hears it now too. I'm looking around trying to figure out where this noise is coming from. Mom takes migas off the stove so she can look too, driving us both crazy. The sound is coming loudest from a big-ass planted avocado tree my grandmother has been growing. Keeps cycling through. We drag it outside, start digging a hole in the pot, but keep it relatively intact, as much as you could, I guess. Get to the bottom. The music box, the broken music box, is closed, playing its chimes in the bottom of a fucking avocado plant. Dig it out, and the tune stops.
My earliest memories are from a few days after my mom and dad finalized their divorce. I used to get really bad nightmares, but the worst experiences were from when I woke up in the middle of the night. Mom and I used to live in an apartment near a lake, and maybe it had something to do with some of the stuff I saw back then. One night I woke up and looked at my door. Back then Mom and I slept with the bedroom doors open. No AC back then. And I could see what I can only describe as a luminous mass, picture a jellyfish made of light. After Mom and Dad divorced, she went through a period where she became really overprotective of me. Dad was a cokehead with a mean streak and threatened to kidnap me, and went as far as to consult a Santeria priestess. I'd always find weird statues around the apartment, crosses made out of sticks inside my pillows, and stuff like that. One night I woke up and saw my bed surrounded by what I can only describe as faceless people dressed in white, as many did during Santeria ceremonies. Needless to say, my childhood was too spooky for me. After a few years, Mom met my current stepdad and we moved to a suburb in the same town, still near the lake. The lake is actually a man-made construct that's really the remains of the wetland that used to make up that part of where I live. Even after Mom quit the Santeria and all of that weird stuff happened. One night as I slept I felt a hand tugging on my blanket. Years later I heard stories about a disembodied hand that would attack people in their sleep. One day I got home early from school and was all alone. I was playing with my Legos when I saw someone in my backyard through my window. I remember seeing a guy in a blue jumpsuit, like the ones worn by some American Airlines employees, walking from one side of my yard to the other. I shut my windows and locked myself in my room. When Mom got home I told her about what I saw and she checked the yard. Nothing was out of place. She talked to my next door neighbors, but they hadn't seen anything either. All I know is that my dog was really nervous too. I'd sometimes see random body parts, mostly legs, around the house. I'd never see a whole body or even a face. They'd all have pasty white skin. I thought the experiences would stop as I got older. It was during my college days that I woke up in the middle of the night because someone screamed in my ear. I was alone in my bedroom.
I'm still not quite sure if it was a dream or what, but I have a very strange memory of my childhood that I at least remember feeling very real. I was probably about 5 at the time. It was fall here in Texas, so all our windows were open, only screen doors closed, to let the breeze in. I was awake in bed. I've never slept too well without medical aid. Even as a child, maybe around midnight, my parents had already gone to bed. There was a light rain falling outside, and occasional flashes of lightning. Through the rain I start to hear this faint whistling coming through the trees. It was melodic and beautiful, but eerie and strangely dissonant. My room is on the second story with 2 open windows looking out onto the back porch, which was the direction the sound was approaching from. I listened to the noise get closer, and seemed to curve around my house from east to north to west. At this point I got out of bed, and ventured into the hall. The sound was now on the south side of the house, beneath my parents' bedroom. I approached the stairs, and the sound suddenly became louder and clearer, as if its source had entered the house. I stood a few steps down the stairs and listened. The sound had definitely come in the door under my parents' room. A soft green glow cast itself on the wall and floor, and I slowly stepped further down the stairs. I don't remember being scared of the noise, more just interested. I felt calm as I descended into the first story, and looked out into the kitchen. I caught a glance of something, maybe multiple somethings, that looked like pig-related, but wearing some kind of black clothing on much of its body. Everything after that is hazy. I felt like I couldn't move. The light went out, the music stopped. I have a brief flash of being outside, a bright green light right in my face, then being back in my kitchen, and then I just woke up in bed the next morning. I don't remember if I was above or below my sheets. I never mentioned it to my parents.
Not mine, but my grandma's stories from her childhood.
Be 6 or 8 years old or so. Live in the fucking nowhere. Go with mother and aunt to the woods, to pick some berries. Because grocery stores are not invented yet or something, be bored. See this silly boy, wearing only pants and a kind of open waistcoat without buttons, So his chest is naked, he is barefooted too. He's around my age. He's making silly faces at me, but my mom and aunt don't see him or don't care. Whatever, let's play. The boy starts running. Hey, wait for me. Now I'm chasing the boy. He is really fast. Sometimes he stops, so I could see him, make a silly face and run again. Suddenly he disappeared somewhere. Now I'm in the deep forest, completely alone. Fuck my life, I'm gonna die here. Mommy. My family finds me hours after and miles from the place where my mom and aunt were. I'm never allowed in the woods again. My face when some people in my neighborhood say it was the Leshy, or some forest devil, wanting to get me. Years after. Bro is sick or something and mom has to go to the doctor with him. Dad is at work. No phones. I'm gonna have to babysit my younger sister and brother. La big sis like a boss. Someone is knocking. It says in my mother's voice, Ananette, open the door, it's me. Impossible, the doctor is far away, they wouldn't come back so fast, and they have the keys. Maybe something happened. Going to open the door because it's definitely my mother's voice. Some force pushes me away from the door. And through the room. I'm lying on the floor now. I'm not gonna go near that door again. Mother comes back hours after, she opens the door with her keys. Thank God, bro is okay. Tell her what happened. Maybe it was your aunt, I told her you'll be home alone today. Aunt comes to visit. We asked her if she came earlier today. No, sorry Ananette, I was very busy today, but you were fine, right? My face when after hearing the story everyone agrees that the devil is after me again.
As I understand, all kinds of weird things happened in the village she lived in when she was young. And I think this place is at the bottom of Artificial Lake right now for good fucking reason. She also told me that someone in said village had huge stables full of horses. Men living in the village worked there, including my great-grandfather. Once, in the bright day, a lot of people saw those horses running through the village and fighting violently in the middle of the road. Men who were responsible for the horses were informed. They thought that someone didn't close the gate and bolted to the stable. But all the gates and boxes were closed and horses were in there. It's impossible that they could get out, and it's impossible that people could see some other horses because they were pretty distinguishable and they would know if someone else in the neighborhood had such, or any, horses. But then again almost everybody saw them. The other story is how my grandma met a witch. Grandma was still a little girl and had something on her leg, like a rash or something that would not cure. This woman, everybody knew was a witch, asked Grandma to come near her and she told her how to cure it with period blood. Grandma told her mom, and she did it. Grandma swore that the next day the rash was gone. Apparently, at least according to this witch, a lot of difficult to cure skin conditions you can instantly heal with period blood. Now that is pretty much all the spoopy stories that Grandma told me.
Not from childhood, but happened about a month ago. Be 22 in college. Dorming with one roommate. Asleep one night. Wake up in the middle of the night. Unable to move. Sleep paralysis again. I've had a few cases of sleep paralysis in the past few years. I'll post more later, but this one is slightly creepier. Unable to move, facing towards the bedroom door. Pretty dark in the room, can barely make shit out. Keep your eyes closed. I know if I open them, I'll hallucinate. Wait until I'm able to move my body. Once I realize I'm fully awake, I open my eyes. Dark figure standing next to the door. The fuck, I thought I was awake. Not scared because I assume I'm still partially asleep or something. Roll over, go back to bed. Wake up the next day. Tell my roommate about it. He starts flipping out. He's been seeing the same figure in the same spot for weeks but hasn't said anything because we would have considered him crazy. I still think I was having some sort of weird sleep hallucination, and he was just fucking with me. But you never know.
Holy fuck, I've been wanting to tell this one for a really long time. This is something that actually happened to me before I moved to America. I'm from Russia. Be 6 or so. Live in Russia, my parents are poor and always work. Typically at night. Go to sleep one night, parents aren't home. Sit in bed for a really long time. Hear something whispering from the closet. The voice is low and whatever it's saying is intelligible, go back to sleep. A week later, I woke up in the middle of the night again. TV has been broken for a few days. Hear noises from the living room, that's where the TV is, walk up there. Some figure is on my couch. See the TV is on, some weird program is showing. The TV was fucking broken. WTF.jpg. Run back to the room in fear. About a few weeks later, my parents are home for the night. Go to sleep in peace. Wake up in the middle of the night to see your dog on the armchair beside your bed collapsed. She was a small pug lying in a puddle of liquid. At the time, I could have sworn to God that it was some dark green liquid. Scream for my parents. They come to my room, tell me to go to sleep in their bed. The next morning, the dog is gone and is never mentioned again. To this day, my parents still deny that we ever had a pug, but I'm certain that we did.
I'll share a story of my dad's. He's a very straight-laced person and has little time for flights of fancy, which is what makes his insistence on the truth to this story interesting. To this day, he claims this is the only unexplained thing to ever happen to him. As a skeptic, he's got enough potential explanations, but none that satisfy him. So when he was about 10 or so living in the suburbs on the outskirts of Ontario, his neighbors had an orchard of some sort. I don't think it was tended to or anything, but they had the sea up with rows and rows of trees. Apples, I think, would make the most sense. As the property was rarely in use and they were friendly, they allowed my dad to fuck around there. He'd bring his friend, play cops and robbers, climb the trees, etc. One day, he was there on his own, just killing time walking through the rows. He stepped out of one and into another, then looked off into the distance. Then he saw the weasel and froze. About 30 feet or so down from him, it had emerged from between a few trees like him headed in the other direction, but it was standing. He guesses it was about 6.5 feet tall, standing on its hind legs, completely anthropomorphic. It was even wearing a maroon vest. He says it was like it was drawn into reality. I imagine it like a cartoon cell superimposed on a photograph. I know how much this sounds like Alice in Wonderland. Believe me, I pointed out the similarities to him and he admitted he'd made the connection as well. Didn't change what he believed he saw. So it notices him and stops, and they stare each other down. He estimates they locked eyes for a good minute before the thing smiles, waves at him, then continues on to the next row. Of course, he doubled back and followed it, but it was gone. It was really hot that day, he says, so he figures it was a heat-induced hallucination. I buy that, but it's still a weird thing to see.
Only had one paranormal experience when I was young. This is a very rough drawing of our old house that burned down years ago. My grandmother's ashes are likely still on the property, and she's watching over whoever lives there now, but that's another story entirely. So when I was young, around 10, it was night and I was sleeping in my room, which had a connector to my grandparents' room and no door connecting. Just an open doorway. I wake up in the middle of the night and see a multi-color figure in the doorway from my room to my grandparents'. It wasn't stationary, it almost looked as if it was dancing.
I watched it for a good 10 minutes, and usually if it's your eyes playing tricks on you it would go away. In this instance it didn't. I got up to go see if it was my grandmother. For whatever reason I thought it might be her, as the silhouette was that of a woman, and as I approached the figure disappeared. I hovered over my grandmother for a moment to see if she was still asleep. She was. Went back to my bed and watched the doorway again. Black, until a few minutes later this rainbow figure appeared again. Perplexed and tired, I went back to sleep. I didn't feel it was hostile, only observing. If I recall correctly, I'm told my great-grandmother died in my sister's room, which is adjacent to my grandparents, before we were born. Can't say it was much, but it was something.
Another sleep paralysis. Happened a year or so ago before I moved away to college. Be 20-ish. In community college. Living at home with parents. On Wednesdays I didn't have class. Family had school or work, so I had the house to myself all day. Girlfriend would come over early Wednesday mornings right after my family left. We'd have a good session before she had to go to class. Be Wednesday. Wake up early to my dad telling me he was leaving for work. He's the last one to leave. I fell back asleep. Generally my girlfriend would just let herself in and join me in bed if I was still sleeping when she arrived. Wake up to the sound of the front door closing. Hear my dogs kind of hopping around and shit. Assume the girlfriend is here and has let herself in. Hear someone walk into my room. Feel someone get into bed behind me. I'm laying on my side, facing away from the door. Fall back asleep as soon as she gets in bed. Wake up about 15 minutes later. Roll over. Empty bed. Figured she was in the bathroom or something. Get out of bed, look out the window. No car in the driveway. Check the house, she's not here. 5 minutes later, her car pulls up. WTF, pretty hard. Assume sleep paralysis. I never opened my eyes or attempted to move when I heard the door open and feel someone get into bed, so it's totally plausible that I was paralyzed and having auditory hallucinations. Was my first case of sleep paralysis ever.
I believe I saw death as a kid. Walking through supermarket with mom. Get lost for a couple minutes, no biggie since I was always a calm kid in these situations. Looking for security so they can find my mom. Fast walk past an aisle, quickly glance down it. See man in his 50s, bald, somewhat fat. Huge figure, much taller than the average human, anorexic, covered in thin black cloth, almost like black gauze. Figure was standing right behind man, almost touching his back, with its body arched forward, sort of covering the man from behind. I jumped as I saw this, looked back, and it was gone. I remember the details more vividly than many other childhood memories.
Something like this happened to me when I was younger than 6. It was one of those nights where it's storming but the rain is light and it's sort of calming. Wake up with the hugest craving for saltwater taffy around 2 a.m. Surreptitiously sneak towards parents' room where the candy-filled cabinet is. Felt a ice-cold draft coming from my parents' door, and although I didn't hear anything it felt like I was being whispered to and maybe even pushed in that direction. I walk towards the door and as my eyes adjust to the dark I notice a figure standing. It's right over my father but it's looking in my direction. Typical Grim Reaper cloak etc., but it was brimming with some sort of magnificence. It had a dark aura akin to the radiance an angel projects, but everything close to it seeped in darkness. That moment felt like it lasted 10 minutes, but it was probably more like 0.10 seconds before I noped out of there. Its image burned a hole in my mind. The only reason I don't think this was a dream was because of how vivid the fear and the taste of the candy was.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.